Hello there, I'm Heltranos from Community Flavor Pack, and today I will introduce you to a new 3D masterclass about architectural 3D. In summary, we'll browse several points, the first one being the core concepts about UV mapping, then the trim sheets. From theory to practice, I will introduce you to a quick making of a basic throne room, and then we will break down one final room from Community Flavor Pack. And I will also show you how to import and customize a room within the game. And as a conclusion, I will share you a summary and final tips before you get started. The first thing to understand before you start with architectural 3D is how UV mapping works in 3D. So basically, a UV is a flattened 3D model into a 2D squared image. So you can see on the right the 3D model of the Iron Crown, and on the left the mesh is just flattened and laid down on the 2D map. You then have, this is the color, what we name the diffuse. And then you will also have the normals, the roughness, the metalness, the ambient occlusion, etc., etc. But for this video, I will mostly use diffuses as they are more visual to you. So yes, that's a single UV tile. The entire model is on one tile. A tile is a squared image. So here it's 124 by 1024 by 1024. Another use of the UVs is what is named a seamless UV. So here I just made a basic square and I applied it a seamless texture. So we say, okay, so what's the difference here? Well, the difference is that if I unzoom this way, as the texture is seamless on every side, there is no sin. When it repeats, then you can scale it on your model, and what you have to imagine is that the UV is actually repeating like this. So it doesn't matter if you go over the boundaries of one tile, but you have to be aware that it's going to repeat. So obviously, if you have a crown, you can't do this because you would have like gemstones all over the place, or whatever else you have on your 2D image. So it really has to be, just a pattern. This leads to the trim sheets technology. It's not really a technology in fact that it's used actually since level design exists, basically. But you had to understand the two first steps. So the trim sheets are going to be a UV, so a squared image, which seams are seamless but only on the sides and not top and bottom. This way they can extend to the infinite, but horizontally or vertically but horizontally is the norm. And then it means that you can, as on the sample images I've got you here, you can create very fine trim details that are going to give depth to your model by repeating, and yet without exploding the number of textures that you have in your GPU memory in order to render the image. So those are just renders from artists' books, but on a more practical level, it's going to turn into this. For example, this is something I found on Reddit as an example, but you have here only two textures. So one trim sheet, which is on the left side, first over the seamless texture of the ground. So basically, this part here, the crosses is here or here, and those here are here, etc. And the floor here is there just for the floor. And so in just 2 UV sets, what we name a UV set is a diffuse, a normal, a roughness, metalness, etc. All the images you have to compute the lighting and bump map and colors of a texture. So you have only 2 UV two sets for the entire landscape here. So it's super optimized. Of course, the limit is that it tends to be repetitive, and well, it looks rather basic, but you can already with a very minimum resources display a lot of UV space. Whereas if you come back to this, it's only one asset, a small crown of like 30 centimeters long, versus using seamless textures, you can display entire buildings with only one more texture. The other main reason would be that if you want to display a large surface with only a limited number of pixels, you would have something that is very blurred or very low quality in terms of just the image would be stretched too far and it would look bad. So the trim sheets allow to, and seamless textures allow to go into more details without using more textures, pretty much. So the trim sheets, how are they made? We are going to swap now on Blender. So as always, I'm working with historical sources, so that's the one of the references I used, which is the columns, capitals, and trims from Little Hagia Sophia, which is a church in Istanbul. So basically retain the graphics and the various styles of the trims. It can be this, or it can be also painted. Like this one is just Hagia Sophia, the big one, not little one. So you have to inspire from the various sources you can find as any 3D model work. And then you will basically model this on a square, right? So we have just a plain square, 4 points, flat, completely flat. And over this, you would add all the, of course this is done already, right? But it's more like a breakdown. You would model all the various styles of trims you want. So the kind of slopey flowers like this are, where are they? I don't recall what they are. Oh, they are these here, which are half circled. So those would be in 3D, but the actual pattern has to be modeled in 2D and then applied to the curved trim in the courtroom. So yeah, basically you just model this. Here I have a blank space because I want to use it for painted trims. And unfortunately I don't have it. We will see it later in the painting software. So here those are sailing parts that are in between the columns. So it's not really a trim sheet, but I had some empty space, so I used it for this. But to some extent it can repeat. Okay, it's just going to be 2 round, 1 square stuff, 2 circles, blah blah blah. The proper trim sheets that we are going to be interested right now for us are those. So basically it is one single element that is applied in array, and the key thing to understand when you make a trim sheet out of 3D is that the middle of the first element has to be on the end, the starting part of the square, and the middle of the last element has to be, and you see there's a slight mismatch, but it's not going to be visible in game, whatever, but it has to be very close, right? Otherwise the seams are going to be visible to you or to the player, especially if it's big. This one turns to be very small, so no one will ever notice it. But if it's a big element like this, it can start to be a bit visible. But yeah, basically all my elements are starting right in their middle. So it's this one, and ending. I have the same ending here as well, etc. So that's basically a high poly model, like you would do for any crown. If you're new to it, I will advise you to look at other tutorials. But yeah, that's a very detailed model that we are going to stamp, long story short, on a simple plate. So here the entire thing is almost 500,000 points, and we are going to turn this into an image from the process of baking. We are now in a Substance Painter. The baking is made with Marmoset, which is this Marmoset tool bag, 4 or 3, whatever. You don't have to own it. Substance Painter has a baking mechanism inbuilt. So I use Marmoset because I love it, but you can live without it and work without it. So this is the baked model, and basically it turned the high quality into images. Those are the normals, for example. So what I add on top is a layer of curator on overlay to give more depth, and as well as some ambient occlusion on a multiply modifier. And this is my base of work. Is going to give more contrast to the end product, because the CK3, even if it's a PBR rendering, doesn't include any ambient occlusion. So I usually add it to the diffuse, the color map. And then on top, I would just add, a stone material. And the last element is the painted pattern. So here, those are masks made in Photoshop. How do they work? Basically, is black RGBA masks, and then on each layer you add one color. Again, the big deal is to have them start in the middle and in the middle. That's about it. Then you have the color, the paint effect, which is on top. That's it. It's a very simple one. No complicated stuff. And that's it for the trim sheet. It's actually most of it is 3D. You have ways to do it entirely in Substance, but this is a more complicated workflow. If you are used to 3D already and want to convert to architectural 3D, this is the logical way forward. But if you've never done any, I would advise you to go on YouTube. You will find tons of tutorials about making a trim sheet without opening Blender at all. So this is another file with 3 similar squares that are placed on top of my baking one. It allows me to check that there is no seam. As you can see, the seam is just a little line in the middle, but you cannot tell where the middle is. So this is a recommended setup for your Substance file. The baking square bottom and 3 sample ones on top. So you can check that it actually extends seamlessly on the sides. So the question is now how to make a room, since you know the seamless UVs and trim sheet ones. Let's move on to Blender. I made a file with 2 materials, which are vanilla from the actual Western rooms, so the wall texture as well as the trim sheet texture. And so let's see how it works. We will just delete the cube and the default Blender cube and add a plane. Increase its size, apply a seamless texture to it, and render the textures. So this is pretty much my floor. I will go to UV editing, and you can see that I'm going back to texture rendering. If I increase the scale, it's going to change the size of the actual texture on the ground. So let's make, I don't know, something like that. So we have our floor, and we are going to add a wall. So I'm making a cube. I add the seamless material to it, scale it. I'm going to grab two sides and make them wider. Probably the wall isn't going to be that thick. Move it to the sides, raise it, raise the top, grab it, and then I have a seamless texture again. The only thing I have to do is to add a seam because it's not going to unwrap correctly. So I'm going to right edge to edge here, right click, add loop, add seams, and same here, add seams, mark seams, sorry, and re-unwrap it. And then I can again change the scale. I will now, this is, you know, this is my wall, but it lacks tons of things. I want it to have windows, so I'm going to add 4 edge loops, Control R and mouse wheel, and then I'm going to, I want quite big windows, so I'm creating 3 more loops, and I add this one, and then I don't need these anymore, right? So let's delete this, delete this. I'm going to get in, go into vertical, remove the back faces so it's clearer to you, and I'm adding interior faces. Oh, and I have, well done, I have some nice windows carved, and I will duplicate this, press P to have it on another object, scale it on the x-axis, revert it to normal with Control Shift N, or is it, hold on, it's actually Control N, Shift N, shit, and again close it. This would be my windows, but since I don't have any window texture right there, it's going to be just, you know, a new material with nothing, so just for you to visualize it. So that's my window, and of course I need 2 of them, so I would duplicate it and move it on the axis and make it match, blah blah blah, and yeah, that's it. And now, well, this is, I have 2 windows, that's cool, but that's too basic. I want to have some nice trims on top. So I will, oh no, I want, you know what I want? I want some contours to my windows, because my windows look like unnatural like this. So I'm adding tons of loops, but I will not keep them because it's not optimized, and I'm going to delete the construction loops. But then I will keep those. This, and this is going to be my trim sheet, where my trim sheet goes in. Of course, oh, mistake. Of course, I'm not going any curve here, but it works the same. It's just more complicated to make, but the idea here is to show you how it works. If I move over my trim sheet, I'm saying it looks fine, okay, but I would like it to be actually like, you know, following the, to be oh, I can do it to be in the correct angle. So I'm separating the UVs like so, like so. Then I should have some alignment work to do, but you know, I'm lazy and I only have a limited time. But you see what I mean? This has to be all the same size. So what I could do with UV toolkit is to load on, align not this way, align them top, align them left, and cheat a little bit by doing something like that. Don't never do this. You have to, okay, I have to do it correctly. It's bad to show this. So basically, come on here. Ha! My life sucks. What happened there? I changed to, okay, there. Don't know why I can't, where are they? There. Why are you selecting everything? Oh. Select the two of them, yeah, whatever. I'm bored now. I'm going to scale it a little bit, just so they have the same 8. There. And I will just pick one of the trims and scale so it fits there. And yeah, no, that looks bad because, you know, I don't have the angles, but I should have the angles technically, 45 degrees angles, but this way could be fine, right? Okay. And because I'm crazy, I will also want some tapestry on the lower part of the wall. So yeah, I'm just grabbing my geometries, but not this one and this one, and apply the trim sheet to it. And look, it's already unwrapped, and I just have to turn it. Wow, there and there, fit it, and I have a nice tapestry below. And because I also want one to be there, I'm going to add a trim sheet and put this one there. This one is nice. And well, that's it. I have a basic wall. Of course, you would want to have 45 degrees angles. This way, I hate Blender when it does that. I'm going to use the knife tool. And so technically, I should have done this and wrap and have something, you know, much more pro, and do it 4 times, just because it looks nicer like that, right? Etc. etc. And I can stack islands, but you see what I mean, right? And do it repeatedly. And of course, so that's the pretty much the basic workflow. That looks not very good because it's too straight. You would want to have some arcs, some construction stones and so on. And my mesh is not cleaned up because technically, like, this one became useless. This loop became useless. You want to have as few loops as possible, like those are useless, and it should be triangulated. And that's why I hate working with. There we go. And you should have technically a triangulated stuff, just to lower the number of points. But that's the quick making of a wall. And now we'll keep going with the theory to practice on the Byzantine court breakdown. It's going super fast, I know, but you have tons of tutorials everywhere on the internet about it. So let's make it less overwhelming and start with the maybe the floors, right? Okay, so I have two floors, and you can see that I included. You could say, oh, that's why isn't it just a square? Because I have some tiles like this that are supports to the columns, right? But it's basically a super simple square with a few stairs. But look at the stairs; they are, you know, simple. Don't overdo it. I just managed to align in the UV the upper part with the steps, just to have something that looks nice and is not offset, because they are not the same on the same UV part. And you see that here on the side it's not aligned, but because players don't see it. On top of this, we have, okay, let's start with the roof then. The roof is, again, look, this is a trim sheet. Where is my trim sheet? Not there. Trim sheet, right. And it uses the nice cured flower trim sheet in a quite large scale. And here again, it's again a trim sheet. And basically, if I just go into my material list and select the trims, everything that is orange here is on the trim sheet. So that's one material. And then we have a second material, which is the Pantocrator Christ. And of course, a mosaic there. So the specificity here is that it's half a trim sheet, half seamless, fully seamless texture. So it's vertically seamless and not seamless on the icons, but everything I needed to be on the seamless part is just aligned this way, which makes me want to show you this. If you make a trim sheet on the UV, you can have super duper long UVs, and when you zoom in, you don't understand anything. But that's all the trims from the room that I will show you right now. The walls left and right, which are duplicates mirrored, because you want to optimize, right? Both the work time and the number of textures. So it's the same, unfortunately, same guy here, but you know, players don't look that way up. And here, well, it gets more complicated because there are more texture. You see the walls that I showed you in Substance Painter here. So with one texture, I can cover the entire room, the entire side walls. You have the trims again. So here I use pretty much all of them. Yeah, I have to, oh, come on. That's boring. But if you, oh, where are they? Oh, that's the meta trim sheet. No. On the bit right there. But if you pick, I don't know, like this, all these parts, so you can, here the rounded part with the flowers, right? I show you on the ref. But if we pick all this, it's there. And basically, if I select by UV, it's going to be all this. And with just this few UV space, I can cover all this. How should I this? I cover all this ground. So that's, yeah, nice. The other material I have is here another. That's the same as Pantocrator texture. So this time again vertical parts, and this guy here is on the side. And then we have another mosaic. So the angels, those are on the other mosaic 2, which is this time a bit cheated because it's actually an unwrap like you saw on the crown, on the iron crown. There is no seamless at all on this UV there, because it's complicated to put this on a seamless, and it's complicated to make a seamless match with a non-seamless part. You would have like on an edge like this, you would have a mismatch between the two. So it's just better to unwrap. But I'm very limited in terms of space. So that's one texture in 2048 by 2048. So it's not very optimized, but that's one. And finally, we have the windows that are used as well in the papal court. So it's just a medieval window, so why not use it everywhere? And this one is vanilla, so those here are vanilla, so you don't have any texture to load on top. So that was the walls. And more, we would have the curtains. Yes, let's do this. Curtains are a simple model. They are they are on the same texture as the columns capitals. that I will show you right now. There, here, they have more details, but you will see them in game and not on the diffuse. But so those are, again, this is a one tile UV, there is no seamless at all. So that's 2. And finally, you have the throne wall, which uses, let's hide everything else because, which uses this, and this are on one texture alongside the kind of brown angel. This one is throne wall, I suppose. If I respected my I didn't. If I respected my naming convention, how did I name it? Let's be fresco. There. So all the frescoes are on one other texture. Again, because it's impossible to make this seamless, obviously. This is my trim sheet. This is the angel texture, blah blah blah. So no more texture, but the frescoes one. So in the end, if we get to community flavor pack files, and this is what, ooh, I'm in caps lock, fuck me. Flavor pack, DFX, models, quote, materials, Byzantine. The entire room goes with 24 textures, 100 megabytes, and it's 24 divide 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There is the Stucco for the MENA version. So there's the Byzantine one, not the MENA version. Is 7 texture sets, 93 megabytes. So when it loads, it only stores it only stores this in your GPU memory. And in terms of mesh optimization, the entire building is quite, it's 51 K vertices, and the big part are the curtains, which are 11K, because you don't want them to be too flat. They are at eye level, so 51, which is, I mean, that's reasonable. It's quite large, but the room is big, and it's displayed only in the Byzantine Empire. So, and CK doesn't display much more than characters and this, so it's not going to be very demanding on the GPU. So that's how it's made. Basically, let's get back to this. So yeah, it's this room. I mean, as simple as it may look, is worth a month of work still, because there are so many details, like the apses, which are inverted half spheres, such as the curved walls. You have to align everything, make the symmetry work, make everything match. You have the trim sheet required some strong 3D work to make it look right. It involved a professional illustrator for the artworks, for the walls artworks, as well as 2 team members from CFP for another 2D artwork, or for other kind of 2D artworks. So it still requires a lot of work. But if you start simple, I always use the let me grab it. I always use the courtroom from that I released with Royal Court, which is the Norman Court. There it is much more simpler. Apart from the windows, everything is just blocks. Everything is squared. There's a bit of curves on the roofing, but apart from the windows, it's just plain walls, very squared, very straight lines and so on. So and it uses retextured vanilla trim sheets. So apart from the plastered bricks you see here, it's almost only vanilla textures. Yeah, on this one. So it was actually very fast to make. It's a good start. It's a good starting project to make something that is squared. It's even more visible if you look at the Irish version, which is this is the stone I was using earlier on a few minutes ago. So yeah, vanilla textures works for your own first courtroom model. This is something I really want to tell you, is that you don't need to know how to make trim sheets. The game already has some that you can reuse, so you can already create variations using vanilla textures and have fun with this only the 3D part. The other last part that we are to move on now is how is it imported and set up. So that is again quite simple. Let me show you. We have we should get back to the Byzantine room, or let's go to let's go to CK3, and if you go to game, GFX, code scene settings, and say you want to make a variation of the Western room, so you grab one file here, you copy it, you put this same path in your mod folder, so it's GFX, code scene settings there, and let's do it live. I mean, why not? I'm going to paste it here and rename it my mod underscore red room. So the 1 is the variation and the G is grander 1. My grad, open it with Notepad. Let me check. I don't have anything work in progress that you would try to steal from me. This one, right? It's Western. Let's name it my new court room. It's Western. Visual Cluster 1. We keep this. We don't change it. We don't change anything else. That's it. And then we'll start the game, which is on my desktop somewhere behind all these layers. Okay. So that's it. You just copy one file. Of course, you have to export the models if you don't know how to do it. I made several tutorials about how the asset files are set up, how to export your models. It's very simple, and for the courts, it's the most simple of all. You just have to make an asset file, give it the name and texture, and list the textures. You have to declare everything in the text file, and that's it. Then you don't need anything else. Textures, a model file, an asset file, and that's it. No other config file anywhere else. Let's wait for the game to boot. Please, come on, let's go. So asset file, the asset file has maybe while it loads we can grab one from the models court. We'll actually use, so let's go to one court, rooms, papal, and so here you see I have like the papal flooring, the mesh, which is the model, and the asset says what's the name of the mesh, the name of the file, the different materials and textures I have with the index, which is just basically index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, index 4. And then you have entity, and this is the interesting name that you will need. So let's, keep this one, Control C. All right, here we are. So I'm a Byzantine emperor, and I have my fancy Byzantine court that you just saw. If you never saw it, well, try Comedy Favor Pack. I am in debug mode, so I have access to these three tools here, and I will press Open Editor Settings, and you open up this window, which is the tool, the Royal Court editor. You press Toggle Tools, Devcam, so you can roam around and look at the fancy details of your newly made court. Cameras will allow you to, I have to disable this of course, will allow you to tweak all the angles that you can see in game or in the camera mode. Lights will allow you to tweak the lighting. So as you can see, there are not that many lights in the Royal Court. The game has only a limited light sources, and only a limited number of them can actually cast shadows. I think I don't want to. I think it's 14, but 14 lights and only. Let's try. Let's cast shadow. And at some point, it's going to turn red because I added too many. Still not. Why can I have that? It's still not. What the? Did this remove the limit? Anyway, you don't want to have too many because you see it starts to have artifacts everywhere, so only the meaningful ones should be in. And well, here I actually had a lot. That's weird. I think like a room like my African room is hitting the limit, but yeah, that's whatever. In characters, you can tweak the positions of who are you? My guard. Where's my guard? I have no guards. Where are they? They are at war. A courtier maybe, please. There. Oh, you're flying, you! And you can there move them up and down and on the side and whatever. And the assets is the interesting part. We'll come to it right after. Artifacts, I basically never change it. At least not the pedestals. I keep the vanilla setup, and there. You don't want to change anything but the angle. So if I have, I think that's number 2. That's not. So it must be the 1. There. You can again move the artifacts, but then you have to adapt the. It's there large. You have to adapt the camera to the new position. So that's part of the work. But you see the UI is okay. It's here in the where you can make the shadows like darker, like this, and how much they fade over distance. I'd never change it either. And in the assets, that's the interesting place. You can. I will move on there to do this. We will go to my new courtroom, and look, oh, it's the wonderful. It's the copy of the vanilla room as we did, copy paste of the file. And that's where the fun begins, because since I made the fancy flooring, Iberian flooring, I'm going to retrieve the entity name of a model and just stick it there. The floor, is it the floor I put? I don't recall it. Well, let's use the Grounders tree. Oh yeah, that's the good floor. That's the nice one. And you see that vanilla courts are extended in the back. If you don't need it, well, just go to floor far and remove. And if you don't need the roof far, and then you can remove. And if I want to change the wall, I just go there and grab run walls, blah blah blah, grab an entity. I think all my walls are in one model on the Iberian room, so that's going to be interesting. What they did in Vanilla is that they are quite modular and they collide with each other. They also have back faces like this. It's better for GPU rendering. I have mixed feelings about it because nowadays, I mean, it's not like CK3 is going to pump on your GPU. Even if you have a low tier computer, this is going to be meaningful for lower computers. And well, basically you don't enter the room with that computer without stuttering anyway. And still you see here it's not closed, so all the models are not all closed, but whatever. But you see that they actually collide and they don't match at the very exact coordinates. They are also centered. My models are centered to the same origin, which means if I put 0, 0, 0 everywhere, my quartz is already, that's the wall, this wall here. I guess I don't need it. My models are already centered if they are all at 0 origins, which means that I'm doing the alignment and the positioning in Blender. So if I export this wall with a 0, 0 coordinate, it will be centered on this point. If what CK did is that they have their models like this, and then they place it in the editor. But the difference is that their models are made to be modular, mine are made to be matching at the very exact same coordinates. So I cannot afford to manually place them, just, string them already aligned. That's easier for me, but you can work the CK way, it works as well. The editor is good enough to make it, and so on and so forth. You would just change the roof with yours. You can even combine elements that are already existing, which means that you can generate your variants of the quartz, of the vanilla quartz. If we go in Western Grandeur 1, so that's the vanilla one. If I want to change the wall to a Grandeur 2, doesn't exist, right? Grandeur 3, it doesn't exist either. Back there and try to replace the B by an A. Oh, come on. Side wall. Ah, there. Nice. So it turns. You see, I can. That's the interesting part about CK quartz, is that they are modular. So it makes them not that iconic, but at least they are modular, so you can make new ones. Of course, you will have to maintain them over time, and that's another topic. But if you want to edit a room, off you go. You can play with it. I could, for example, make everything dark by removing some fill lights. The fill lights are very important in the overall lighting. There you go, and it becomes suddenly dark, and that's what my good friend Spark did for his vampire mod, to turn the lights into darkness. You can turn this like a dark blue, because it's just like the moonlight and so on. So you can have plenty of fun already, even if you don't know 3D. And this is actually how I started myself making level design back in 2003. I opened the SDK from the good old, very old Call of Duty 1, and there was already a map with buildings that you could compile and play. And I started removing buildings and played with removed buildings, and then I started to add my buildings to the existing map. And suddenly I was, oh, why don't I make my own map that I can play with my friends? And yeah, that's it. I was a modder. Bad one, but and a young one, but I did modding. And you can pretty much do the same. And if the world doesn't please you, well, it's super easy. You just go in Blender, you make a new file, you install the Ross G tools. Blender is free, Ross G tools are free. Kudos to him. You press load mesh and you go into CK3 in GFX models, buildings, courts, rooms. Like here I want to go to Western walls, and that was the B. There, go to the name 1B, and here you go. Well, of course, you're going to experience this in Blender the first time you open a wall. Just go in View, send 1000 to 10,000. It's going to have artifacts like this, but the scaling, I don't know why the scaling in Blender is completely off, and if you turn the lens, I think like 1 meter is 10 meters. So it's kind of weird. But if you downscale it, you will never find the good scale again, except if you just resize by 10 and then upscale by 10, but that's meh. You can from there, if you press Ctrl or Shift F3, you can load the textures inside it. It should be automated to some extent. Here it's not. But for some materials it works. But you can load the texture and then you can rework their model. I could very easily remove one window and make a new variant of the model. Like this. I could even show it to you right now. Never do this when you're modding, right? Because I will have to check my game files after I'm done with this, because it's super bad to do that. But if I delete the window, save the mesh, and it was Western 1B, selected only, it should, what did it should update with the file patching, but what did I do? Error. I broke it. Oh no, okay, wait. I don't know why it doesn't work though. I may have busted it, but to some extent, yeah, you just edit it and you can tweak your variation, and whenever you want to go further and make your own wall, well, you will have an easy challenge. As I showed you a little bit earlier, you can make simple walls fairly easily, and then learn step by step to make a nice arced window with 3D made stones and so on. Yeah, I think I don't forget anything. Oh, it's time to conclude then. My conclusion is very small. The first would be work to scale. It's super easy when you're doing 3 to lack the general sense of scale, like to have very tall windows when you wanted to have regular windows, or to have walls that are 5 meters tall, and then you come in game and you're like, oh no, I didn't want that. So work with scale, make a block. I'm going to edit it live. Make a block out. A block out is if I wanted to make this wall, I would just first, let's make a reverse engineer block out. Where is my square? There. I would just first do this. Like this. And then add my 3 windows to it at these 3 places. like so. Literally doing the blockout for you, but and then give it a placeholder texture and import this in game. Like as simple as it is, you don't care. It's just going to tell you, okay, my proportions are fine. You can also, a good practice is to import not a head, a body, male body there, and but as you can see, the scale is a bit weird, so just first scale your guy and then make your window and then once in game you will scale your blockout to have something that matches your wishes compared to CK3 character, but at least you will have the good proportions. So usually you work with meters if you can. In CK the scale is weird, so whether you work in meters plus the character and then you zoom, or you zoom to match the in-game scale, which is different for some reason than the Blender scale. So yeah, work with blockouts. It's easy to make the base layout and then you redo it with the details. Work with quads. What I call, this is a quad. If I do this, what I did earlier was to make the, to work like this. And as soon as you do this becomes a problem because you cannot do a loop anymore. So you have to be careful about it. As soon as you can do loops, you can add a lot of details, because if I add plenty of loops here, I can easily add a bevel, which I can't do anymore when I have a triangle. And on the same way, when I want to clean up my mesh, as soon as the triangle is going to be in the way, it's going to be a pain in the ass to clean up. So keep quads as long as possible. It's a good practice. If you look at the Byzantine court, which has loops but to some extent that are broken, I can select the entire 8 here and just delete it if I want to simplify the model. On the other end, I can make this angle easily beveled. Well, not that easily because here it's not squared, so it stops. So I would have to then manually select this and then make my bevel. So that's why it eases the workflow to keep squares. Here, typically here, it's all dead because I had to join the apps with the arcs, so no way to do it differently. But where can I find oh, those are annoying. It helps when you actually want to unwrap your trim sheets. It has to be flat, very flat. And if I take this one with alt click on an edge, it's going to select all the loop, right? All this. And if I do it on the trim here, it stops because this is not a square. And you see that, yeah, my trims are bad, but I don't give a fuck because it's not in the player's perspective, but still it can, if it's in the player's perspective, having this is no good, and I would have to actually, do this, but then it's not in the trim sheet anymore, so it's distorted. Whereas if I add squared stuff, it would be it's less catastrophic. But here it's a triangle, it becomes bad. It's flattened like this. It requires a long time to be made nicely by hand. It's better way to have it automated. So yeah, keep quads and do the triangles at the very end if you can. So work with scale, make a blockout, work with quads, and of course try it. It's not that hard. Basically, let me prepare a new tab for you, but basically I started when I was 13, 14, the architectural 3D. It has almost not evolved. It has evolved, of course, but the core principles of trim sheets and so on are the same for 20, I mean, since Doom, since Doom 1. Yeah, so when I was, at this time I was, here I was 15, so yeah, that's something you can do, and it's an exterior environment from a 2004 game. So I mean, the hardest of course would be to make the textures if you are completely a complete beginner, but the game comes with some, so go on, try it. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this short or not short masterclass. I hope it was easy to understand. I had to, of course, go quite fast, but be sure that you can find way more comprehensive tutorials about every step, even the steps about CK, because I covered those in import tutorials in the past months or years. So just really give it a try. The architectural 3D can look good even if you are not used to 3D, and you will always find the resources. You can work and make things even if you're a beginner, and it will look good, which is not the case of a crown. If you're a beginner, your crown will look bad, and there's nothing you can do about it but to gain more experience. Architectural 3D is more permissive because the volumes are big, and the player eyes is never going to focus on very singular details. It's more like it must be overall looking okay, architecturally logic, and shiny, and have nice colors and so on, but no one is going to look at this edge is too sharp, so, which is not the case of a crown. On the crown, people are going to bend their head and stick their nose on their screen and be like, oh, it's nice, but there is a bug here, because they are much more concerned about how their character look. So yeah, feel free to try. If you have questions, forward them. It helps me making better tutorials, and maybe, who knows, I will make something even more detailed about a specific step of this workflow. That's it. Have a good Modcon, and have fun. See you in CK3. Bye bye.